Welcome back to another episode of More People, More Problems with myself, Brittany, and my wonderful co host, Chelsea. Welcome, welcome. We have a good one today. I think we always say that because obviously we just think we're
It's always
great. But this one is kind of on that topic, so it's extra great. Before I do that, it was just our 1 year not too long ago. I hope everyone's liking and enjoying the podcast. Don't forget to comment, engage, reach out. We love that. So just a reminder for that. And hopefully you enjoyed today. But I'm going to pass it over to Chelsea to introduce what we're talking about today.
what we're talking about. This one resonates a lot with me, and it's intentional greatness. Because obviously, I think I'm intentionally great. I'm not intentionally great all the time. But, anyways, um, for those of you who aren't exactly sure what that term means, it's like the constant pursuit of excellence, like being remarkable, going the extra mile, I guess, but like consistently, right? So it's not just once in a while. It's like you're known for always going above and beyond.
You just made me think, and I hate to interject right away, but in all seriousness, you joke that you think you're great, but do you think that this is a big title, intentional greatness? Like the way you just defined it is like, it made me go, oh shit, I thought I had moments of this and now I don't know if I do. Do you feel like this is something constant? Do you feel like it's part of the journey? So there's moments of it. Do you think this resonates with you as something you're in constant pursuit of?
No, I think you're always in pursuit of it, and
Okay.
there has to be various elements that allow you to be intentionally great as well. If you're like incredibly stressed out, if you're so overwhelmed with work, it's obviously going to be hard just to keep up with what's required, let alone go a step further all the time. Now, some people who are those like type A overachievers, this might be really natural for them, or it might be still something that they're always working at. So like for example, you've been asked to do something. Okay, you've delivered, you've done a great job, but instead of just giving what you've been asked to do, you've gone ahead and added something else, some other report, because you think that that's going to be really helpful to your boss. And what if they decide to share it with other people? Oh, it would be great if we put it into a visual graphic.
So
Like
it's
those are
always
intentional
going
great.
the extra mile. Do you think it's in all aspects of life, or do you think it's very specifically in areas of productivity like work?
I don't necessarily think that you're always doing it in all aspects of life to the same degree. Like, I think at one point I was doing it at work really, really well and like
I
not
know what
hitting
you're
the
gonna say.
mark in life for other things. And maybe that all feeds into the whole balance aspect and whatnot.
Yeah.
And then sometimes I feel like I'm killing it at life or at family or whatever. And no, I always think I'm doing well at work. But, anyways.
You know what though? I think what you're saying resonates to me because so intentional greatness, you just said it's going the extra mile. It's believing that you have the ability to do more and be more and doing the things that you think will get you there, right? Like it's not just being mediocre. It really is being that A player or on pursuit of that A player status, right? And I think it can happen in different areas of your life. But I think the important part is where you have clarity of where you want the greatness.
Mhm.
And so for me, I would say my time at Shopify, I really was focused on intentional greatness in my career to the detriment of my personal life, which I have talked about before. But I think actually in reality, that has to happen because you cannot give everything to everyone and be great at it. And so it really was clarity of purpose was I need to build my career right now. I need to do the things that I believe are going to push me ahead, push me to better. And I gave it all there. And so I didn't on other aspects. Whereas since leaving, I think I'm seeking intentional greatness in like my personal life right now and have been. And
Absolutely.
I'm still doing things career wise, but I'm not seeking it at the same veracity. What's that right word?
I I mean, you could use veracity or to
Okay.
the same degree, I guess. And like this is really interesting because I was literally just having a conversation with Gary last night about it. Where like 2 years ago I was in a place with my career where I was working extremely long hours. And no, I'm not saying that long hours means you're amazing and stuff. Long hours could mean you just are not very good at doing things within your allocated period of time.
Could be
But
both. Yeah.
it could be all kinds of things, but really long hours, doing the above and beyond constantly in work, which added, sometimes it's evenings, sometimes it's
Yeah.
weekends to get that extra and whatnot. Um, and really taking away from the family life. And we had an interesting conversation last night about him like pushing me to kind of put that away and focus on this and focus on that. And maybe I should have listened for the longest time. And he said to me, well, now all of a sudden you're listening and you're doing more on the family side, or you're putting more towards your personal, physical, mental health and whatnot. And but I said, I'm still doing really well at work and in my like perspective. But I said I had to work really, really hard to get myself to a place. And I knew what that place was where I felt comfortable, where I felt like I put my effort in. And now I can calm down a little bit on the overdrive. And I can go a little bit more overdrive on my personal life while still obviously doing well on the work side. But like, even I was thinking the other night, oh, should I join parent teacher council? Wow,
Who
that's
are you?
else. Like, I think you're adding a bit too much. But I was like thinking of those types of things. So I was like, I would never have thought, even have given that a thought 2 years ago, because I'm like, there's no way. There's no way
Yeah.
I can handle
The
that.
kids will survive.
Yeah, yeah, they'll
Now
be fine.
you're like,
They're
"Oh, they'd
almost
love
like
it."
elementary, you know.
You know
So
what, though? You're hitting on an important point, which is I think you're just as deliberate as you were 2 years ago. You're just as deliberate now, but you are focused on different things because your skill base is at a different level,
yeah,
and so you are literally just driving towards a different gauge, which means you can't really measure it by actions. You have to measure it by outcome. And when we talk about intentional greatness, my understanding of it is really like deliberateness, like intentionality, really focused. And then it's being very specific about what do you need to drive it further. It's
hmm,
about having a really good internal gauge, about knowing, okay, instead of waiting for everyone to tell me, oh, you did great, or can you go do this little thing because you missed it? It's like internally, I know that I want to create a certain outcome. So I'm going to go that extra mile and do that thing, even if no one notices, because that is what I expect of myself. It's going and, presenting in front of a team. And instead of asking everyone, how did I do? And then gauging it that way, it's asking yourself first, how do I think I did? And then measuring that up against what other people think. But it's learning to account for that internally yourself instead of wait for external factors. So there's like a big piece in there of internal versus external, in my
hmm,
opinion. And I
for sure.
think when you're younger in your career, or you're more green, you aren't able to do that. There's more to understand. And so you have to put more time in. Like that's just a reality. But once you get more skills, you still have that internal kind of gauge and drive, but it's just a different one. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
And I think that takes time to develop, exactly like you said. You're not necessarily starting out your career knowing or capable or being able to purposefully read that within yourself. You're always looking for the outside perspectives. And
Yeah.
maybe enough times you get those outside perspectives that helps to reinforce and you
Yep.
help to create or to like monitor that gauge on your own, which I think is really, really cool. And I think as you get further on into your career, ideally, you're tapping into that more and more. And you're being really deliberate about the things that you're doing, the way your mind is focusing on how you want to show up and how
Yeah.
you want to deliver for others and for yourself as well. But I think that it's really important with intentional greatness to know your purpose. Like, why are you being intentionally great? Why are you being remarkable? And I think it has to be something beyond yourself.
Yeah.
In terms of like, I just want to look really, really good for everyone and I want to get my next job or something. I think it has to be something out, outside of that, something more external, something more serving to others. And I've always lived by this motto that my job is to make my boss's life easier. It's to make them look good. It's to make them
It's
be
really
able
true.
to do amazing at everything. And so by me giving them everything they need and giving them even a little bit more, that's that 10% that we've talked about like even in terms of the A players, that's that 15% that goes the extra mile, that is just allowing them, maybe they're like filling a gap where someone else isn't doing as well, so this is going to help them shine. And maybe it's like so above and beyond, like this is just, is going to be a standout item for them. So that's
It's
what
it's
I've always thought.
it's so funny because you say that, and, like, I'll just be very honest, and I don't say this to, be rude about yours. It just doesn't resonate with me, like, that would never be the purpose for me, but I think that's why it's so interesting because you need to figure out what it is for yourself that is gonna drive you, like, I think the first question is, what is greatness? Like, why does it matter to you? Like, forget these clinical terms. It's like, really, what does greatness look like and why does it mean something to you?
Hmm.
Not to everyone else, not to your parents that want you to get a better job, not to your spouse who thinks you're worth more. It's like, what does it mean to you and why does it matter? And I think for you, what you just said, I think there's a deeper value, which is like supporting, helping. Like there's something more there that really goes. For me, it was always around, like, I cared so much about the humans around me, whether that was in my clique at school, in my friendship group, or then at Shopify when I was there, that I wanted to support them. I believed that we had the opportunity to make something better and more unique than what was created in every other company. And so it was this like novelty. It was this creativity. It was this opportunity that I
Hmm.
believed in so heavily, that there was so much hidden potential in us that we hadn't tapped on yet, that I just drove and drove to make it better, I guess, and believed that I could actually impact that. I truly believed if I leaned in and did things that it would go further. And you know what? As I say this, I
But it
actually feel like this
starts
is
as
a
this.
lie because I think this is where I got over time. But in the beginning, it was about a job. It
Yeah.
was about getting praise. It was about impressing my parents. So I think I got there, but it wasn't there at first.
So maybe I'm just not evolved enough.
No,
Um,
no, but
Under-evolved, clearly. I'm, because your example started out as serving others, supporting others, and it had a very kind of external to yourself. And then you've built on it and said like creating something or something that has impact, which I think
yeah.
obviously incredibly important. Maybe that's a few steps further, but you've said it in the purpose of creating and supporting and doing
Well,
that with others.
yeah, and, now I'm trying to put my head back into, like, when I first started. Like, when I first started, I knew that I had a strong belief that I could just do more than what was already being done. I mean, I convinced Toby that I could do HR, and I'd never done HR in the practice. I had just gone to school and done bartending, which I felt like was HR. And so I believed in myself. I had confidence. I did believe in myself. I had a clear purpose, which was build up my resume for another job. And so that wasn't external as much as it really was.
It was
Maybe it
self-serving.
is, but you know what I mean? Yeah,
Sure.
and then I always had my parents taught me on the education side, on the skill side, I had a growth mindset of like, if I don't know it, I just need to learn it.
Sure.
And so that really went into repeat. But I will say what I didn't have at that point was, like, I really did seek external validation and feedback loops to gauge where I was doing good or not. I did some things on my own, but a lot of it was like, okay, I decided to build a culture handbook early on, and I showed Toby and some of the execs, and I remember them being like, "Oh, this is cool." And had they said this was shit, I would have thrown it out in a second and never thought twice about it. And
Right.
so I wish, and what I ended up building over time was that internal ticker of like, this is good. No one needs to know or watch. It's all the little things that add up. Some of the big
Sure.
things, obviously, you need that, but I really had to curate that internal gauge of what does
Yeah.
this mean and how good is it?
And the interesting thing you just mentioned too about your example is, had that happened early in your career where you got a this is shit, I'd have thrown that out and gotten rid of it. Had that happened, I don't know, 3 years ago, you would have taken that experience and you would have learned from it. And And maybe you
Yeah.
would have thought it was shit, or maybe you, I mean, I highly doubt you would have put up a product that you personally thought it was shit. But one of the hindrances to being intentionally great is those people who don't learn from the feedback, who don't learn from the criticisms, whether they're justified or they're just critical, um, and they're constructive, who don't actually learn from it and take it and go, okay, now I'm going to evolve from this. The people who really get stuck in that type of feedback.
Well, and don't you think that is like, okay, so cueing the Adam Grant in our life, well, the real Adam Grant, but watching his videos and some of the interesting things he says, he talks a lot about the difference between skill and character. And that a lot of people assume that your skill level will drive you forward. And if you just have all the skills, you will be great. You know what I mean? Whereas there's a lot of research coming out that character is more important to success and greatness than skill is.
Perseverance.
And what you just said is, I think, what a lot of people believe, that I went to school, I learned all the things, I know how to do a budget sheet, I can do all the things, so I'm going to be great. And it's like, no, you can have the skill, but what's a lot more important is the character skills, such as curiosity, creativity, determination, and motivation. That's what's going to actually drive you further along to the greatness, because instead of putting something out and then hearing that shit and then being like, oh, I'm not good enough, which to me is assuming it's a skill. It's like, oh, it's black and white. My skill wasn't good. I got to go learn more skill. It's like, no, okay, let's learn from it. Let's be motivated. Let's be determined to improve next time. The skill might have been there halfway. Let's
Sure.
evolve it. Let's get more creative with it and push forward. And I think that's where character really plays in. And I think even more so when you're young, character is so critical. I think there was a stat that said your character is 2.5 times more than the like technical skills or cognitive skills in determining your salary in your 20s, meaning your impact and outcome is going to be based more so on character. Once again, determination, motivation, creativity, curiosity. Instead of like being like, thanks, that was shit, I'll put it away or throw it out. It's, well, why? What can I do better? Did I
Yeah.
miss something? Oh, maybe I, can do this extra thing to go an extra mile next time and evolve it?
Sure. Yeah, yeah. Well, for sure. It's not just about the things that you do, it's about how you do the things, right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that character is so incredibly important. And that's why they say, as a leader, you can't just have that accreditation. You can't just be a technical expert. There's so much more to being a leader. And it's all about the how you do the stuff and how you
Yeah.
lead the people, and those elements that make you you, and not
Well, and
just
I think,
what
what
you
you
know.
just said, that it's like not only what you know, it's how you do it. I
Yeah.
think that heavily relies on evolution and change. And so when I think about intentional greatness and my understanding of it and what we've talked about, it's an evolution. It's kind of like mastery. It probably could be interchanged with the term mastery. It's always something that you are working towards and never actually get there. That's probably the most exciting thing about that, is that there's always more hidden potential, but that you need to be en route towards it. And it's only, well, maybe like this, but it's up and to the right eventually. Um, but I think that the change, the character is what makes you resilient and what makes you so adaptable and want change. And the skill is more fixed. It's like change happens and my skill no longer applies. And so then I just drop out.
Yeah.
And so I think a huge aspect of this is merging skill and character, and how you actually adapt to this ever changing world we're in, that sometimes can be scary because it's so fast paced and evolving.
Oh, yeah. Well, like, that's really key what you just said as well. I don't have that skill, or this skill no longer applies. Okay, so I'm done. No, no, like growth mindset, right?
Yeah.
Can I go and learn that? Can I go and figure that out? Like, how hard am I going to work towards that? Like, how much am I pursuing continuous learning? In that aspect. So those elements of intentional greatness, like we've talked about it, right? The growth mindset, the continuous learning, resilience and perseverance, like something's going to get you down. Go back at it hard, like don't just
Yeah.
stop there. Don't stop because you're just lacking in one aspect. you know. Also,
Yeah.
like having purposeful support around you is really key to being intentionally great. I think that you want to look to role models who are doing that as well. You want to have people who are constantly supporting you in pushing that extra, I don't know, that extra mile. I mean, I've had leaders around me before who didn't exude any sort of greatness by any means. Um, but then I'd had other role models who were that constant beacon of like, that's what I need to be. I need to keep doing
And
that.
how would you define, like, give me a real tangible example of looking at someone that you were like, they're not, and someone that was inspired to be great. Like, what was the difference that you would notice?
I think like the lack of enthusiasm, the for those who weren't doing it,
Yeah.
they're just like okay with just the status quo, like being very mediocre, like just doing what was being asked of them versus anything extra that was that wow or that was going to take it that real extra mile. Whereas I saw others who were thoughtful and purposeful with the work that they were doing. They were
Do you
not
think that
just
they just weren't in the right role? Like, part of me talking about like intentional greatness, mastery, like having clear purpose, like I think some people are just working for a paycheck and that might not be where they need the greatness. And so they just aren't. They're there to serve and then they're out. And it kind of highlights to me the critical importance of finding that match of purpose, opportunity, and self, and really understanding where you are. Because I know at times I wasn't intentional about my greatness in different work activities because it wasn't the right match. And I probably should have set a better boundary or moved out of it or, many different things. I just want people to listen and realize like it's not something that just clicks that you need to be there. There's probably a recipe of setup for yourself to be in the right situation to then aspire it. And if it's like, I don't care about being great, you're probably not in the right position.
okay. Yes, you might also be in a bad space personally as well, that you can't bring your best self to work either. I have seen those
Yeah.
examples where I've looked at someone and say, they've got it. They must have had it somewhere at some point in their career or maybe just in their last role, but they don't have it right now because there's a lot going on in their personal life. They're just really struggling to bring their best self to work, which is kind of allowing them just to do the bare minimum at this point. Or maybe it isn't the right job. So I can agree with that. But I have an example for someone who's worked for me for a couple of years right now, and I think they're intentionally great in almost everything they do. They go above and beyond, and I know that they push themselves. It's constant. I know that it's not like I'm never going to be let down by this person. And maybe if I am let down, it's going to feel really really bad because I've come to have this expectation of this person that they're never going to let me down. And when they give me something, I know it's thoughtful. I know they've gone extra. I know they've gone above and beyond what I've actually asked them because now it's just ingrained in them to do that. And like I haven't been let down by this person yet, and we've been working for several years with each other. I know I can count on them. I
And to
know
me,
that
that
they're going to do
sounds
more.
it sounds like, and as we explore it, it sounds like this recipe of a few things. One is clearly you guys have been working together for a long time because you have a mutual respect and a really good partnership. Like there's a lot of really important ingredients to your working relationship that sets you up for that. I think also it sounds like they have purpose. They have a clear vision of what they want. And then finally it sounds like a lot of character. Like that is their value system. That is how they show up. And I guess what I'm saying is sometimes you can have a missing piece to that puzzle and not really realize it. And then I don't think you can achieve intentional greatness, mastery, push yourself. So I think the first thing is kind of take a scope of, do you even want that? And then what's the ingredients at play? What's the puzzle pieces? And then I think you're right. It's like there's very tangible markers, or let's just talk about patterns in people that achieve intentional greatness. Like, what are those? And I know that I can speak for myself. The really important things for me was a belief that I could, like a belief that I knew even if I didn't know things, I had the ability to learn
Figure it
and
out.
that I could put more time in and that I could seek things out and that I just needed to stay determined and that every little thing would add up to the big thing. And sometimes the little things didn't end up mattering, but if I believed they did for me, then I should do it.
They do. It's the small things. It is the small
I think
things
it's
that
the small and the
accumulate.
big.
Sure, of course, but it's not just the big things. That's
Yeah.
what I want to get across to people. It's not these
Yes.
massive things that you do that are just going to make you intentionally great. It's
Yeah.
also the little small things that add up, that are constant, right? So I was thinking the other day about this, and I said, like, all the small things add up, right? So I raised my hand to be a board member on selection committees because I think that's important, and I think it's an important experience to keep gaining and to keep supporting others in their careers, to keep assessing and whatnot, keeping those skills sharp. I raised my hand to be an assessor for awards committees. I know it's going to be a lot of freaking work, and it's going to be evenings and weekends reviewing applications, that, but like, how cool to gain that experience and to be there where you get to recognize other greatness in other individuals. So I'm like, those are things that I want to intentionally do. I raised my hand to be the floor warden at work. Like, what the hell? What was I thinking on that one? But I'm like, getting others to safety if there's an evacuation. Sure, I don't mind. I'm probably going to boss them all around when an evacuation happens, anyways. Why don't I wear the little hat and the vest at the same
Yeah.
time? I like to be sometimes, and I don't know if this is just a thing for me. I like to be the one who, when an email goes out, like, is anyone up to doing this? And like, everyone's like, oh, like, no, delete that email. I'm like, I'll do it. Like, like, I want to be the one that comes in, and I don't know if it's a save the day complex or if just I'm thinking of it in a really shallow sense when I said that, or if it's just like an accumulation of all these things that I do that are just going to build,
I think
build
that
that acumen.
listening to you, I have a few thoughts. One, I think you have done a really good job of hearing about these opportunities. And a lot of people would think about it as a hindrance, like, oh, more time, more effort. Like, what's this going to bring me to? Is this going to give me a promotion? Probably not. And it's like A plus B doesn't equal C. So too bad. And you've reframed it as an opportunity to learn in some areas, to grow,
Mhm.
to witness greatness. And it's not in pursuit of an outcome, it's in pursuit of growth. And I think that because of that, you're like, sure, I'll try this. You're not committing to it for the rest of your life. You're
No.
experimenting with an opportunity of growth and exposure. And I think that's brilliant. And it actually makes me have an aha moment that I think that the difference between intentional greatness and not is people that are too linear about getting to the end result. I think the most beautiful thing is when we get so wrapped up and involved in the journey instead of the outcome. And you are doing that through these examples. It's the journey. And so people need to slow down and ask themselves, why would I want to do this? Like, is it about the learning and growth? Yeah. Then I can let go that this thing is going to give me a promotion and I don't need to wait for that. And if it doesn't, I can decide not to do it and da da da. But it's the journey, and it makes me really think back to Shopify going public. Like, we decided we were going to go public. I had never taken a company public. There was, gosh, so much work that I was so terrified of that I was like, what if I do this wrong? I'm going to mess up our chance to, you know, be a public company and serve so many more people and grow around the globe and become profitable. I felt like the pressure was on me when it wasn't, but you build these
Yeah.
things up in your head. And I'm like, most companies, when they go public, they hire in an executive team that has done it because they know that that mitigates risk. We decided not to. And I love that we decided not to because I think so much value came out of it, so much creativity and extra amazing aspects of it. But I had to firmly, like you just said, think about all the little things that I was like, okay, I'm going to do this. This might result in something. I have no idea, but it was like experimentation. It was knowing that change was good. It was about the journey. And some of them were like directly outcomes for the end, but it was a process. And I fell in love with the process. And then, I mean, the magical part is usually it all comes together and actually does create impact. but you
You got
can't just drive towards that outcome.
right. It wasn't just about the the outcome, and you got great impact, but it was about I love that you just said that, falling in love with the journey.
Yeah.
Like
I mean, it's
how
I
great
can
is
think of
that?
so many examples now because, like, when I think about when I was in, I'm leading a 500-person talent team, and someone would reach out to me and say, "Hey, Britt, like, I'd love to grab a coffee and just chat." And I'll be really honest, my schedule was packed. I didn't have any openings. I was back to back from 8 AM till 5 PM. And it's like, I don't have time for this. And then I would pause and be like, well, I could sit down with this person. I could meet someone new in the company. I could hear their feedback because I'm not getting that feedback about the company in different ways. And they reached out to me, and that took so much courage to invite me for a coffee. And so then I would cancel something and sit down. And it was for them, but it was more for me. It was a reminder of like, this is like something small that hopefully I learned something and let's see what happens. And they were never looked at like, oh, the chief talent officer just met with someone who just got hired. How amazing. No one ever fucking knew, nor did I care that they knew, but I learned from it and I got a new relationship. And it's something small around like
But that person
reframing.
knew. But that person knew, though. They
Yeah,
knew that you also took the time out of your schedule to meet with them, and not that that was your goal at the
it
end to be
wasn't.
like,
Yeah.
look how great I am, and I went and did that. But that person knew, and think about what impact that might have had on them as a new
Yeah.
hire to the company, as someone who had an opportunity to share some of their ideas, to share some of their background, and how they then linked that to the culture of the company as well.
But I think the interesting so yes, yes, but I think the most interesting thing, and maybe I'm not articulating the best way, but it's kind of that internal versus external gauge matched with direct impact or indirect impact. So what I got really good with over time was internally going, what matters and why does this matter and why is this good for not the direct impact, but indirect and really me. And so, yeah, they were probably hopefully had a good experience. Who knows? They could have had a shitty time and they could have walked away and been like, Brit was not fun. But I hope that wasn't the case. But it really was an internal gauge to say, this is important to me because it relates to my overall purpose and clarity and deliberate pursuit of greatness. And this is something that's going to matter. No one needs to know about it. I could give two shits because, once again, it's not about that exposure. It's not about that external validation. It's internal to me. And this will be indirect to impact. Some things are really clear. You know that if you're asked to write, a paper on something, you're going to get a grade. It's like direct impact to an outcome. Most things in life are indirect and have a lot of external aspects and different things coming in that will determine that actual impact. And so I think that's the fall in love with the journey. It's indirect, and you need to decide what all those little things, to your point earlier, the little things matter arguably more than the big things because they add up. And you spend more time on the little things, I would assume.
100%. And what I was thinking earlier is, what are those things that stop people from being intentionally great? Like the hindrances. I think we talked about a couple of them already. But what are those things that keep someone from being intentionally great? And I think a lot of this has to do with your own fears, your
Yeah.
own self doubts. Someone who's like, and like you said, someone who's so linear. Like, let's stay in my comfort zone. Like,
Yeah.
this is where I'm good, right? Like, what do you think? Are there any other elements that say,
It's
like,
funny. You just reminded me. I watched this social reel, and it was a dad talking about how he was building his little girl up at a very young age to be able to have an opinion about how she's doing. And he's like, my daughter brought me this beautiful art that she created. And my reaction was, I want to say, it's lovely. It's amazing. Thank you. I'm going to put it on my wall. And I had to stop myself. And before I had any feedback, I said, what do you think of it? How do you feel about it? And he said, getting your child, and I think this is even more so for women, when you're a little girl, instead of seeking that validation, that pat on the back, that great job, and knowing exactly what it is, I think it's so, so critical to form an opinion about yourself in your head And
before
I
I
think it's
consider.
even more important to have the confidence to have a different opinion than what you're hearing. And it doesn't mean to ignore that feedback, but it's okay to, like we said earlier, create a product. If I think it's great and one person doesn't, but another person does, I need to be okay with that dissonance of disagreement, and I don't think that we get brought up like that. I think that's a very new way of thinking about growth mindset, about opinions, about self-worth, etc. And so I think that's just a natural hindrance of nurture. It's the way we are brought up.
So how you feel about yourself, how you reflect on that, and
Yeah,
then how do you action that afterwards as well? So
100%. Because think about it, like, okay, intentional greatness, we're talking about all these little things. I might think that every time someone decides to meet with me on their own time as like a business meeting or a networking or a coaching, I want to write them a personal note to say thank you and say one fact about it. Because that to me is really important to just show the growth and the value I got. Someone could write back to me and be like, well, this wasn't really needed. Like you wasted paper. Maybe I really care about the environment and that, like, who knows? But you will get feedback that goes against your view. I think if you don't have an internal opinion about yourself and why you're doing it, what it means, and the value of it, then you get swayed. You get pushed into these other grounds. And that's what I'm talking about. So I think internal gauge, confidence, if you don't have that, it becomes a big risk factor on that pursuit of greatness.
no, 100%. And that reminds me, it's funny. And this was years ago. I was on a board for a selection process, and I was leading it, and I had a load of other people who I had solicited to come and help me out, and they were so kind enough to raise their hands and jump in. And I had ordered a lot of nice little thank you cards on Amazon. And I said, this was back when like it wasn't everything virtual, right? Back when we
Yeah.
were in the office and I could send thank you cards through the internal mail, and did just that. And maybe a lot of people thought about that later on. And maybe they were just like, oh, this is weird. Like, who's this person saying that?
I always think going, like we say, the going the extra mile, really what it is like put in a little extra effort if you have it, about things that matter to you. Don't do it. Don't fake it. Don't do it just because you
Oh,
heard
don't
it
fake
here.
it. Yeah, of
Like it
course.
has to resonate and
Gotta
go
be authentic
towards what you're doing. Yeah. But I think that extra effort, who doesn't love feeling thought about, feeling heard,
for sure.
feeling, supported. And obviously it will go towards whatever. I know people actually, this is maybe where I witnessed it the first time. We had people at the company who were so obsessed with user experience and design. And it was such a value of theirs that it went into everything, such as, you go to make a slide deck. I've never seen more beautiful slide decks because it was so critical to them. Did it matter to everyone? No. I would read probably a deck in a different ways. I can tell you it was more enjoyable. It was nicer to look at, but because it meant so much to them, that was the extra effort they put in, And so it really, like, once again, what is your intentionality? What do you want to be great at? It can't be everything. You might want to be a great parent. Well, guess what? Then go the extra effort, the extra mile in everything you do within that. And I guarantee you, you will, because we always have more hidden potential and opportunity in us. Pick where you want to go, be super intentional, and then do all the things that matter to you.
So is that the TLDR or TLDL?
I guess so. Would you
Too
add
long,
anything?
didn't listen. You kind of just did it. You just summed it right up there. Be
Yeah.
intentional.
It's good because this pod today, I'll be very honest here. I feel like I, ever since leaving Shopify, I've struggled with where's my next act? Where do I want to be great again? And I've experimented a lot. I've done a lot of little things. I've tried things. I mean, the podcast is a great example of I've really fallen in love with the journey with you and Katie. And I'm not just looking for more, listens or a bigger audience. Because I think we're doing cool shit here and I'm
Yeah.
enjoying it and the growth and the learning. But I haven't had that same deliberateness, intentionality that I once had. And in preparing for this episode and even talking through it, I realized it's because I've been doing it so much on my personal side, my family, like my personal growth. And I've grown so much in that area that I am so much better. of a person and a version of me than I was 3 years ago. And so it's letting me off the hook a little. Like it's like, okay, you get to pick where you want to go. And I might come back to that specific deliberate career goal. Actually, that's a lie. To the specific growth of like greatness within my skill and character are merging together to create a career goal. But right now, that's just not on the top of it. That's not my priority, and that's okay.
Yeah, but that, just like we said, that is absolutely okay. And you can't do everything great,
Yeah.
amazing at all the same time. And it shouldn't be like that, because if you'd have kept doing that with Shopify, say now, for example, would you be married?
No, and also like I love Shopify. I still am a huge, huge advocate and fan of that company and the leaders that are still there and the ones I haven't even met. Like they're doing great things. It wasn't right for me anymore because talking about those first few ingredients of having the right opportunity, the right role, it was for 10 and a half years. And then it wasn't for a half year. And I knew that. And I knew that I needed to step out because I no longer wanted to be great in that role because it no longer fit. And you're right, I probably wouldn't be married, I probably wouldn't, be out here. There's so many things. This is like a merge of all of our episodes of, the fork in the road and what you decide. But yeah, yeah, it has me
Love
thinking.
it. Look at you with your aha moments. I love when you have aha moments. Makes me feel good.
Yeah, I love it too. Yeah,
So
it's all about that the journey. Fall in love
it's
with
all
it.
about the fall in love with the journey. That's what I was going to say too. That's going to be my new quote.
It's probably the hardest thing to do, by the way.
It takes a
Like,
lot of
how we are built to think of end outcome, it's like, think about losing weight. Like, who falls in love with just eating healthy in the gym? Like, sure, maybe you get a high from it, but you're doing it for a result, and so it's hard to fall in love with the journey.
well, and that's why most diets and exercise regimes don't work, because once you hit your outcome, you're like, oh, okay, I'm good.
Yeah,
Not
and
going
it's
to do this
no.
anymore. I got my abs, or I lost my 10 pounds, right? And that's why
Yeah,
everyone yo-yos back. You have to fall in love with going to the gym. You have to fall in love with the feeling you get after you work out, or the healthy feeling you have when you're eating very well and you're nourishing your body. It's not
and
just
never
the
being okay with like, I think it's never being okay with an end goal, like, always believing that
go
there's
better,
more,
go more.
like, maybe you got the abs, but now you want the biceps, or maybe, like,
Want the glutes.
Yeah, but, like, now you've fallen in love with the weightlifting and it's for your mental clarity. So yeah, it's the
That's a cool
constant
one.
pursuit that there is more.
The constant pursuit of more. I love it. Okay, so should we do some wine time then at this
Yeah,
point? Be
yes.
intentionally great at drinking wine?
I like it. Okay,
I'm
be right
there.
back.
Be right back.
And we're back. Cheers, Chelsea.
Woo! Cheers.
You got a white? I don't have a bottle that's new, so I'm just drinking an old sparkling rosé.
And holds not too sparkly anymore.
Yeah, you can see a little bit of the fizz coming up, but not as much. You can tell it's been in the fridge for a while.
Yeah, it's not the first one you'd serve your guests when they show up.
No, no. What do you got for wine time?
Oh, this is one I think it was your mom or your sister in law brought last night, or maybe they both brought one of these last night. It's called 20 Bees. It's an
Oh, I like
Ontario
that.
one.
Auntie B, Brittany the bee.
Well, it's not anti-bee, but it's 20 bees. But yes,
Okay.
bee. It's a Pinot Grigio, and they told me because they know my love of grocery store wines. They said this is one of your wines from Metro, and then they said it was very cheap as well.
Oh,
Eleven
good.
ninety.
So what was their review of it before you get into yours?
Well, I think that their review was more based on because it's costs 11.95, and you can get it
So it
at
was a 10 out
Metro.
of 10.
It's your basic Pinot Grigio Ontario wine. Good. I'll give it a hurrah for that. I mean, I'll give it a 7. It's like nothing
Okay.
super special. It's fine.
I mean, for the
I,
name alone, I'd pop it up a point or two.
I mean, we drank a full bottle last night and another grocery store wine. So, I mean,
There
clearly
you
we like
go.
both grocery store wines.
I love that you have my whole family over at your house. It just highlights the bestie nature of, well, you're part of the family. That's the reality.
Yeah, we had a good night actually. We played. Your mom was looking for some more games she could do with, I guess, some of the ladies at Camelot. So I showed her a dice game.
Oh,
that
fun.
we were playing in Dominican quite a bit with my mom and the kids and everything, which is fun. And then I showed them another card game. So as the ladies, we sat at the counter, ate some snacks, and then we kind of went through a couple of rounds of this game. So now they've got some new games that they can try
Oh,
out.
good. Oh,
Yeah, we had
good.
a nice dinner,
Well,
a
shout out
lovely
to,
dinner.
Nana Pam and Catherine, Auntie Catherine.
Yeah,
Everyone love you.
the sis was
Um,
there too. Rochelle was there too.
oh, just avoid her. My sister is coming next week. I am
I
like
know.
I joke about ignore her because I am over the moon excited. I cannot wait for her to come. She's coming on her own, leaving the hubby and the kids at home. And I don't think we haven't had a fun trip like this, just the two of us. I mean, she's coming, Scott's here, but so we'll be with him for 3 days, but then we're going away for the weekend. And I just can't wait to have like sister time. Like I'm
It's going to
so
be so
excited.
great. Oh, it's going to be so fun. But what's your weather going to be? Is your weather starting to improve at all or what?
It had been, but today's chilly. But it had been gorgeous. I wonder what it's like next week. Um,
Didn't we come around this time last year, like,
yeah.
or 2 years ago or whatever? We came like end of February, early March.
No, no, because you came before the wedding. You came in like November or December. It was November. It was end of the year when you guys all came out. We were at the house, the rental.
No, that
Well,
I feel like it was February. It was like right
maybe
after
it was.
Christmas
I
Eve.
can't remember now.
Like it
Anyways,
was,
it flows. Like today is 16 degrees, but then she comes in on Tuesday and it's 20. And then Thursday it's a little not so great, but by the weekend it's like 23.
oh, that's nice.
So
That'd be nice.
hopefully, I mean layers, and if the sun's on you, it's gorgeous. It's just if it's not, then it gets a little chilly. But I mean, rain or shine, we're gonna have a time.
We're gonna have a time. And you know what? It's funny. I was telling your mom I was podcasting today, obviously, and we were chatting last night, as you do, just like a couple of grown women chatting about laundry machines and dryers and
Oh my
stuff. And
God. Did
she
she
said,
tell you my
"Yeah,
story?
no." She told me to ask you about your story because we were getting on the topic of the
Oh
products
my
that we should or shouldn't use. I'm like, "Oh my god, this is blowing up my life right now." And she said, "You got to ask Britt what her story
Okay.
is."
So this might take like 5 minutes, but I'll try and give the Coles notes of it. So we in this house we put a washer and dryer in the bedroom closet because the other one's on the other side of the house. So we're like, let's try this out for convenience. And the washing machine, they're both front barrel, it just like kept staying wet when it was done. Like there would be soppy clothes. And so we're like, something's off. I call in to book an appointment. It's so annoying because we're outside of the warranty because we bought them before the renovation started. So I was like, whatever, I'm still going to pay. Just get someone to come out. Well, the gentleman that came out, he comes in, we show him. He has the wash and dryer out. Scott brought him in. I was doing something. I think I was in the gym. So then I finished and I went over to check in on him. And I was like, "How you doing in here?" And he goes, "Oh, working on it." And I try and make a joke like, "Is it actually an issue or is it user error?" And he goes, "Well, I think it's user error." And I was like, "Okay." And so then he pops out the little detergent where you put the detergent, the liquid in, pops it out, and he goes, "Who's been doing the liquid detergent?" And I was like, "I don't know. We have pods. I don't use liquid." And he goes, "There's liquid in here." And I'm like, I felt immediately like accosted. I was like, well, we have the Tide Pods. I don't know what to tell you." And he goes, "Well, someone's been doing it." And I was like, at this point, I got a little pissed. And I was like, "We only use Pod Tides. Like, I don't know what to tell you." And then he goes, "Well, how many do you use?" And I go, "Well, depending on the load size." And he goes, "No, no, no." And I go, "Excuse me?" And he goes, "Why do you think they tell you to use two or three?" And I was like, "Because you need more detergent to clean big loads." He goes, "No, no. They're trying to sell you more. So you just go through it." He's like, "That's way too much detergent." And I was like,
Well, how are
"Okay."
you supposed to know that? The back of my Tide Pod bin says two for big loads, like
Yeah.
really big
But
loads.
guess what? He said, "Never, ever, ever use more than one Tide Pod. That's more than enough for the biggest amount of load of clothes that you could ever do. It's all a scam. Do not use more than one." But the way he said this was so intense. And so I'm like, "Okay, fine. I'll only ever use one." He goes, "Yeah, you're using too much. It clogs the hose. And so then the water just sits there and it doesn't rinse out because there's too much detergent. He's like, so it's your fault. And I'm like, okay. Then he goes, but also the hose was kind of set up a little wrong. So I fixed that. And I'm like,
Okay,
okay.
thank
So there
God.
what like, yeah, you fucker. Anyways, but he's like, he went on and on about the detergent. Then he decides to go, and your dryer, what are you using for that? And I'm like, at this point, I'm like on defense mode, right? And I'm like very quietly, dryer sheets. And he goes, ugh, ugh. And I go, okay. And he's like, why do you do dryer sheets? And I just look at him and I'm like, because my mom taught me to. Like, that's how I learned to do laundry. And he goes, no, no, no,
Your
no. He
mom's
goes,
an idiot.
do you I know exactly. He goes, do you know what the biggest cause of fires are? And I'm like, no. And he goes, well, dryer sheets. And I'm like, really? And he goes, then he's like, and gas fired dryers. And he's like, do you know how big the flame is? And I'm like, I don't. I'm like, okay. He's like, it's like 2.5 feet of flame coming in. And I was like, do we have a gas dryer? Like, I thought it was electric. He goes, no, you don't. But you know what's worse than a gas? Dryer sheets. Like, he just came in and in and in. So I was like, okay, like, sir, what do you want me to do? And he goes, have you ever heard of the wool dryer balls? And I was like, oh yeah, actually my mom does. And he goes, so she didn't teach you that. And I was like, fuck you. Anyways, and then he goes, yeah, do that. And then he starts telling me how it breaks up the clothes, takes away any type of, static. They're great. He's like, get rid of the dryer sheets. All they do is add wax to your clothes. They ruin your clothes and they start fires. He's like, it's the most dangerous thing. So then at one point I go, so my husband was a firefighter for like 14 years. And he goes, yeah, go ask him about dryer sheets. He'll know. So afterwards I asked Scott and he's like, no, I've never heard that before. Like, I don't know. But this guy was so intense. He was there for over an hour, pretty much explaining to me how to do laundry. And then when he goes to leave, he goes, so ma'am, like, do you need me to look at any other appliances? Like, I really like this stuff. I could help you with anything. Is anything else not working? And I'm like, no, everything's fine. Get out. Like,
Get
I
out
feel
of
like
my
I was
house.
just shamed. And he was just so intense. Like, I was so scared. Like, who asked you, where did you learn to do laundry like that? Like, my mom?
Oh my word.
Too much.
Yeah, I know. Your mom was mentioning to me last night about the bounce sheets or whatever. I'm like, I still have a box and a half in my flipping cupboard. I was like,
So you know what I did? I bought the balls. They're in there now. I told Scott only ever use one pod. So we only use one. So I mean, listen, I did learn from it, but I've never felt so stupid
the
and
delivery seems a
so
bit mean.
yeah, but it was also like comical. Like I would say something, he's like, "No, no, no." And he was like a 25-year-old guy that like came in with a mask, it kept falling, so then he'd pull it up. Like it was just so comical in every aspect of the way. And I was trying to be serious, and then I was trying not to be like defensive and be like, get the fuck out of my house. But it was
Oh
a moment.
my word. Okay, well, now we've all learned a thing or two about doing laundry properly. I
Yeah.
still want to know, how did you have detergent in that little cup thing at the top if you've not been using it? Stop and dumping in extra detergent? I
We
mean, I
don't
don't know.
have we don't have any liquid detergent in the house.
So how could that have even happened?
I don't
Came
know. I
like it
asked
came like
him.
that. Came like that.
It was the whole rub and rub his fingers together in my face. Like, it felt so, like, dirty and exposing, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, "Ooh." Like, it was just
That's so funny. Oh, now I'm gonna have to change how I do laundry. This is so annoying. I
you
have
got it. I
dryer
mean, it's
balls.
cheaper.
If
It's
anyone's
cheaper.
happy. Yeah, I know, but I love the smell of the dryer sheets. I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
they're so
You know
lovely.
what I got? So, I got the balls, and then I got eucalyptus drops that I put on the balls,
Yeah.
and so it dries and kinda gives a scent to the clothes.
I'm just careful. I used to do that. Like, I have dryer balls and I used to add the essential oils on, but then I wasn't sure if sometimes like there would be a wet patch on it and if it would touch my clothes and leave oil stains.
Yeah,
So
that's actually
I
smart.
started getting a bit wary about it because I was
Yeah.
like, oh, it could be bopping onto stuff and leaving
I'm
little roots.
sure Joe Blow, who came in, would have known the answer to that. I mean,
Call him
I
back and
don't
ask
have
him.
it, but he knew everything.
Well,
He
I'm
goes to,
just,
like, washer and dryer conventions and learns about
oh yeah, whirlpool conventions or
yeah, and
whatever
then he
they
started
call it.
telling me about the best detergent to use,
Oh,
Arm&
what is it?
Hammer.
Really?
That's what he said. He said Tide is the worst one
Oh, great.
'cause he's like but this was his opinion, but he was, like, shaming me and even buying Tide. He was like, "No, no, no, do
Well,
not."
I have the Kirkland, but it's orange, so I feel like it's the Tide for Kirkland. You know what I mean? You know how Kirkland has like proper
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah. I
companies,
mean,
and
I
then
love
you
my
just
Kirkland. It's like
slap
all the
Kirkland on it.
knockoffs that are great.
It's just like my Bounce sheets. They're not Bounce
Yeah.
sheets, they're the Kirkland ones, but for sure they're made by Bounce, like
Yeah, and they
100%.
still have wax all over them. So, I mean, listen, you
Okay,
decide what you want.
listen, I'm gonna finish out that box. I cannot stand wastage with this. I'm gonna keep using my jar balls. I'm gonna finish out the box of Bounce, and we'll see how I feel after it.
Okay, we'll reconvene then. Also, how was your family trip?
Oh my god, it was really, really good. We had amazing weather. The villa we were staying in was fantastic. Food was
Yeah.
really good. No one got in any big arguments, which was great.
Which is always just, a valid concern when a family is living in one house with multiple kids and,
Yeah,
generations.
chaos and stuff. We did fun activities. We went horseback riding. We
I
went
saw
on
that, yeah.
ATVs. We did some fun stuff. So lots of beach time, lots of pool time, lots of cards and games, and
Oh, it's so fun.
kids having a blast together. So it was really
How long
great.
are your parents there for?
They're back now. They came back on the same
Oh, that's
evening as
nice. So
us.
they stayed, like, obviously they were there, I know, before you guys
Yeah,
arrived. So they were there and then they finished it out with you guys.
we all left at the same time.
That's awesome.
Yeah, because the direct flights are always on a Tuesday. So we were like the last leg, the last week of their trip, of their like 1 month trip. So
Way to, like,
great.
end it on a high.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. I
Yeah,
think everyone enjoyed it. I'm gonna go visit them later, see how they're recovering from all the family time. They're probably happy to have their space back and all their
yeah.
home luxuries. Who
For,
wouldn't?
like, a week, and then all of a sudden they're gonna be missing you and wanting you back. That's how it goes,
What can I say?
you know?
You know.
Oh, that's great. Well, I'm
Yep.
happy you guys had a good time. I'm sure it was nice to be in the sun, but Ottawa has been, like, such mild weather. I mean, you don't even have to leave it.
It's going to be like 12, 13, 14 degrees this week for a couple of days. It's crazy. And then the rest of the week looks super mild, above
It's kinda
zero.
scary.
I didn't like it. And you know what? And Gary will not stop reminding me that this year we decided to purchase a service to do our driveway. The first year ever. And of course, like, he's got a hernia, right? So he can't, like, I was very worried he was not going to be
This
able.
was for him, not for you.
That was for him, and now he's, like, even more pissed, though, because he's like, "It's only snowed, like, 3 times, and the plow has only had to come, like, 3 times or something." So we put
Just
all
give
that
it more
money.
time, because how many times in Ottawa do you get a late winter and, like, give it 3 full snowfalls, and he's gonna be like, "I couldn't have done this."
I mean, I keep saying that, but it keeps not happening yet. It's like rain. Like, last night was, like, fog and, like, misty and everything, and then it's beautiful
Such, like,
today.
fall weather.
It does kinda feel like fall weather in, like, the best way, because the good weather is definitely
Yeah,
coming. So I'm like, "Oh, I'm gonna get the kids' bikes out and stuff." It's
that's
like the
crazy.
snow's all gonna be gone really soon. Like, I'm actually super excited. Maybe by the time you come at Easter, like, it'll just
I
be,
hope
like,
it doesn't
stunning.
snow right when I come home.
Oh my god, that would be horrible. No, I feel like we're, like, on the upswing. I really
Yeah.
feel like we're
We
on the
gotta
upswing.
do a fun Tipsy Tuesday when I'm there in person, we'll do it together.
Oh, for
That's one
sure.
thing we should do.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, I
Okay,
can't wait.
well, this is fun. I'm gonna finish up my wine.
Okay. Cheers, I love you. Cheers to all
Cheers.
the listeners. Be
Cheers.
great at doing one thing, even if that's drinking wine.
Oh, yes, I like it.
Fall in love with the journey.
The journey of the drink journey. Love it.
Exactly. Okay, well, I love you. Bye.
Love you.